morning, everybody. Good evening.
Well, hello there, friends, lovers. Happy Sunday. Welcome back. This is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir.
Hello, and I'm Amy Nasir.
I'm Robert Nasir. My co-host Amy Nasir is here. Unlike last week when things were, well, we weren't here. One of us was a little bit under the weather.
I got the black lung pop.
Little Zoolander reference there. No COVID, though. Passed those tests.
Yeah, corona-free.
Yes. Well, eventually. You know, it is endemic, if we all understand what endemic means. If not, listen to Amish. Amish Adalja will straighten you out on that. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. Happy Sunday. Sorry about that week off, but we are glad to be back, and today is Sunday, January 16th, 2022. It is our honor to be with you today. Today is January 16th, the 16th day of the year, 2022, your best year yet. I said last year was your best year yet, but stands to reason that each year should be a little better than the last. We're going to help make sure that very ambitious statement actually comes to pass. You have a generous 349 days left. 349 days to make this magnificent. It's going to be good. With that in mind, there are 342 days, 342 shopping days until Christmas.
Better get on it.
And I mention that because that sounds like a lot, right? You think, oh, good, I can take it easy. I don't need to worry about that. But there are only 29 days left until Valentine's Day.
Oh, well.
Or is that Valentine's week? I keep petitioning to make it a season. That petition hasn't gone through, but one has, and we'll talk about that on this date, January 16th. Amazing, amazing things, which I actually need to bring up on my screen here. My printer wasn't doing its usual thing when I was looking for it. Where am I at here?
On today? Today.
Today, January 16th. Now, here's a tie-in for you. January 16th, 1605.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little ways back, 1605, before the American Revolution, before all sorts of things. Don Quixote, el ingenioso hidalgo Don Quixote de la Mancha.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the ingenious Don Quixote of La Mancha, was published January 16th, 1605. Those of you fans of Don Quixote, sort of kind of one of the early templates for Cyrano de Bergerac, although Cyrano was also based on a real Cyrano de Bergerac who had much in common with the character. That book it was actually published in two parts, but first publication, January 16th, 1605, also born on this date, January 16th. Happy birthday, André Michelin.
Yes.
Now, are we talking about André Michelin, the developer of the tires, Michelin Tire Company, the founder, the industrialist who started Michelin Tires? Or are we talking about the developer of the Michelin Guide? The
5-star Michelin
the restaurant guide. The go-to restaurant guide for finding the best restaurants. Which Michelin are we talking about? André Michelin.
Who?
Some of you already know the answer. I'm guessing you've already said in the chat. André Michelin, of course, was the industrialist who founded Michelin Tire, but also was the man who founded the Michelin Restaurant Guide.
Whoa!
The Michelin Guide, the finest, only the best restaurants, was originally and still is a traveler's guide. It was published in conjunction with selling tires. People who got in their automobile and drove throughout the country and throughout Europe kind of being a continent and a country. You know, you can drive from France to Germany. It's the craziest thing. You can't drive from the United States to Australia. You can't drive from the United States to anywhere but Mexico and Canada.
Well, that's double trouble, or as the French say, double trouble.
Yes, that's what they say, I'm sure. Je ne sais quoi.
Double trouble.
But in France, you get in your car, you drive to Germany. You do have to take the tunnel to England. But you drive to Spain, you drive to Italy, you drive to Germany, you drive everywhere. 100 countries you can drive through. So yes, the Michelin Tire Company is also the company, and André Michelin, the man behind the Michelin Restaurant Guide. Link to that in the show notes. It's worth taking a look at the both the guide and the information that's online and the history behind it. It's also January 16th is World Religion Day. So those of you who have a religion, hug it tight, hold it close. It is World Religion Day. And I say that slightly tongue-in-cheek because it is also National Religious Freedom Day. Aha! Now, one of the big founding factors for the United States was religious freedom. And our Puritans and Pilgrims wanted the right to celebrate whatever they believed in, as opposed to the C of E, the Church of England, or whatever the church was at the time. They were suffering religious persecution. Over the course of time, that has eventually come to include freedom, not just of religion, but from religion. And with that in mind, the guy who's president? I forget, but the guy who's president right now actually just signed that into a national celebration. The National Religious Freedom Day is now officially a national holiday.
Did he do that, really?
He did. That guy.
Wow, that one guy.
That guy.
Uncle somebody.
I'll remember his name when he's gone, because I'll be like, bye, Den. So, but yes, those of you who don't have a religion, you now have it sanctified. You have your non-religion sanctified into law as of January 16th, as of today.
Hooray!
It's official. It's a beautiful thing. It's funny, there was a recent discussion online about religion, and somebody said, well, you atheists, that's just a religion too.
Oh, okay. No, not quite.
To which I always steal a line. I heard it from Christopher Hitchens, but I'm sure other people have said it too. I know I've heard other people say it.
Right. Atheism
is a religion the way off is a television station.
Right.
A TV channel.
It's a good analogy, yeah. Yeah, I mean, what if you're going to say atheism is a religion, absence of religion is a religion, then what does that say about their religion? I mean, it doesn't, anyway.
Yeah, fasting is a dinner. It's a menu selection. I'll have nothing. Ooh, pretty bold. We don't mean to get into a big discussion of religion. We do that online. We give everybody grief online. Here, it's all good. What you believe, we're behind you 100%, because it is National Religious Freedom Day, January 16th. It's also Prohibition Remembrance Day.
Oh.
Prohibition Remembrance Day. It's kind of like Holocaust Remembrance. It sounds better that you look at it as a Remembrance Day, because the other thing I could have said is, today is the day that Prohibition was signed into law. We've talked about the repeal of Prohibition as an answer to the people who say bad laws are never repealed. Well, they're usually not, but sometimes they are. Never give up hope, especially if we see Roe versus Wade overturned. Never give up hope. So today is Prohibition Remembrance Day, and in that honor, I say have a drink. We did drunken podcasting about a month ago now.
Just water, folks.
And this time it's just coffee. So sorry about that. But it is Prohibition Remembrance Day. So after the show, perhaps we will celebrate that in style. You who are listening should do that right now. It's also, finally, one more, January 16th, 2022. And this has been a holiday since the 1970s. I'm sure you all know about National Nothing Day. I don't think anything more needs to be said about that. No, it's actually National Nothing Day. It's one of those unevent holidays. You celebrate it by not doing a thing. It was actually proposed in the 70s. It's been celebrated annually since 73. It actually goes back to an AP story, 1956. It was originally proposed by the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama, as National Do Nothing Week, which sounds, again, going back to the French, like something they would do in Europe, except they generally take the whole month of August off in answer to those capitalists who would have people actually, work. Ew. So it is, like, we need a holiday to celebrate slacking. But I like it. I'm good with it.
Well, okay, so it says on Wikipedia here for National Nothing Day.
Yes.
You've got... It's an unevent proposed by some person. I'm sure he was nobody. Let's see. It says to provide Americans with one national day when they can just sit without celebrating, observing, or honoring anything.
Well, that goes with our unique take on National Religious Freedom Day, doesn't it?
That's very true, actually. Yeah, but I actually think I did a lot of doing nothing today, as a matter of fact, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Did you enjoy nothing?
Well, there was something. I was celebrating, actually, not doing anything terribly important except for looking up how to travel to Japan and videos on that. So that was really fun.
Well, that's good. That's good. It's a day of rest.
Yeah, it is.
It is National Religious Freedom Day, and in some religions, you know what you're supposed to do on Sunday, which I believe technically is Saturday at dusk until Sunday at dusk.
True.
But yeah, you're supposed to do nothing, which stands to reason since, most of those religions also preach creation ex nihilo, which means of nothing. And, of course, Julie Andrews in The Sound of Music said nothing comes from nothing. Nothing ever could. So there may be an issue there. In fact, in Les Miserables, Victor Hugo states, there is no such thing as nothingness, and zero does not exist. Everything is something. Nothing is nothing. So I agree with Victor Hugo. I like his take on that. I am not a fan of anything ex nihilo, which just sounds nihilistic to me,
Yeah, not terribly polite.
So yes, our version of National Nothing Day, we talked about this before when we had a whole episode on vacations. The great thing about slacking is if you are a person of self-esteem, you've paid for it. Just like we've talked about gambling. Is gambling irrational or immoral? And the answer is, depends on whether you've paid for it. If you planned on it, if you set aside a certain amount of money, you know you can afford to lose, it's already paid for, it's done in advance, it is not irrational or immoral. So enjoy your nothing.
Yeah, and we've got a comment here by Jim on Facebook. He says, a National Procrastination Day, perhaps? Maybe, if they ever get around to establishing it. Yeah, and he's also got another, how many portions of nothing do you order? And
ooh, good point. Do they charge you twice as much for an extra helping of nothing?
And he says also about Michelin, double trouble, you can't go to a restaurant without tires on your car, so they must be brothers.
They were more than brothers, same dude. So there you go. There you go.
And Jennifer says, you got to have something if you want to be with me, says Billy Preston.
Billy Preston, nothing from nothing leaves nothing. That's right. Yes. Billy Preston was so funky. And you got to see him again if you watched the recent Beatles special. Kind of brought all the boys together. Good stuff. What are we listening to? I know what Amy's been listening to while she's been doing nothing, and she's been listening to a lot. And it's going to tie in with what we're doing. Though I do first have to mention Yaron Brook did another Rules for Life. Give that a listen. We'll link to that in the show notes, especially given that Jennifer is in the chat today. Absolutely worth a listen. He discussed dreams and following your dreams, chasing your dreams, making your dreams happen.
Oh, he was talking about the dowager at the anniversary party who is talking about her dreams and what they might mean.
I don't believe that came up. I may have missed that part. But what he was really talking about was especially this West Coast Silicon Valley idea of big, hairy, audacious goals and dreams. And the idea is you can develop a realistic goal, and we're going to talk about that. But the problem is a realistic goal can sometimes be uninspiring. Whereas a big, hairy, audacious dream gets you jazzed, gets you pumped. I'm not going to be a fast food restaurant manager. I'm going to be a CEO-level executive of a Fortune 500 company. And even if you don't quite achieve that, you move in that direction much further than you would have if all you ever tried to do was be a Taco Plaza manager, like some of us were in the old days.
Yes.
So yes, definitely listen to Yaron's Rules for Life. Always good when he does those. He's so great on politics, but, it's politics. And he's so great in talking about world events, but, they're world events. But when he talks about rules for life, that's always good stuff. What Amy's been listening to, I should ask her and then she would tell you, but I'll tell you this.
Oh, what do you think?
I know what it is.
What?
Because I know she's been listening, as always, to true crime stories and podcasts and stuff. And I know that she's been listening, as always, to British baking contests.
Yes.
And you can't resist that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what she's also been watching and listening to lately are Japanese travel videos.
Yes.
Why Japanese travel videos?
Because we're thinking about possibly going to Japan in the near future.
Yes.
Yeah, well, not quite too near, but in the future, in the short-term future, I guess. And if anybody has gone to Japan, please send me your travel tips or post them in the chat.
Yes, we need to know what you've got to say about going to Japan, other than don't do it, because I've already added that opinion to the equation here.
Yeah, don't put your chopsticks in the middle of a bowl of rice. Because
don't put your chopsticks in the middle of a. Why wouldn't you put your that?
Because it's a funerary. It's something you do at a funeral to give an offering to your dead loved one, and also the same thing. Don't pass one thing to another on a chopstick, because that's another custom that they have at a funeral.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like lots of ways to get in trouble. Maybe we just shouldn't go.
No, that's the two macabre things that
there's only two problem
and you
modes
shouldn't be
there.
really, really loud, like really loud Americans. and you
they like it when you're really loud and bold.
And you shouldn't talk on your phone, while you're out in public or anywhere, actually.
I don't think you should do that in America either.
Especially on transit, on trains or anything like that. And you also shouldn't be like eating and drinking while walking anywhere. You have to sit down to drink and eat. Even like a cup of coffee, you can't just, sip on it, going around.
Because if somebody pinches your butt, you might spill your drink.
Yes.
As
Let's
happens.
See, what else? So also in Japan, you can't... you have to take your shoes off before you go into any place, just about. Well, except for some restaurants, But if it's like a hotel or some place like that, if they've got like a whole bunch of slippers lined up, then you know what you're in for. You got to take your shoes off and then put your feet into hopefully some clean slippers.
Oh, they line up slippers for you to use?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you scoot around and do like little flip-flop noise.
That makes the whole taking off your shoes thing seem much more reasonable and simultaneously much more weird. What do you mean you've got slippers for me to wear?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
that's exactly right.
When in Paris.
And also, if you have like a thing of tea, a carafe of tea or something, you serve it to the person that you're with, especially if you're on a business trip or something like that. And then you have to set it down, and then you have to wait patiently for them to serve you from the pot of tea. Otherwise, you're not getting any tea. Or I guess you could ask them to.
If you could speak Japanese.
Well, you'd be, whoever you're with, hopefully you can actually speak the same language. But also, if they hand you a business card, you need to take it with both of your hands. So if you have something in your hand, like a cup of coffee that you've been carrying around outside, you've got to put that down first, and then you got to take it with both your hands. And then when you're giving something to somebody, like your business card, you then present it with both of your hands, because that is what you do. And and then you bow and things like that to folks, and you say arigato gozaimasu and konnichiwa, hello, and all that.
Mary Helene says, I thought it was Italy where you get your butt pinched. Depends on your butt. I mean, it depends on the target you're providing. But no, I'm sure you're probably right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. But everyone's very, very polite and very accommodating. They'll give you the side eye if you're gonna be eating out in public, just walking about. And they also say to always wait for the crosswalk signal before you walk, even if you look both ways and there's nobody coming, no cars coming, that you have to wait. Okay, I guess.
But do they give you the side eye? Do they look at you askance?
I guess they do.
As harshly as they do in Paris?
Probably not.
When you commit a faux pas.
Probably not.
Okay. Well, we survived Paris, and all of that. I think they call it hot cuisine because they're so haughty when they serve it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we can get through Paris, we can get through
Right.
Japan.
Yeah. You just say konnichiwa a lot, and then you say arigato or arigato gozaimasu, which means thank you very much.
Domo.
I don't know what domo means exactly.
It means big.
Oh?
It means large.
Oh.
So it's big thanks.
Thank you very
Domo,
much.
or, it's a reference to the Styx album. If Mark's
Yes.
listening, he knows exactly what we're talking about.
So
I think
anyway.
anybody in the family who's ever done karaoke knows exactly what we're talking
So
about.
hopefully in the year 2023, we're going to be going to Japan.
So Amy's watching Japan travel videos.
Yes.
So in conversation, in conjunction with the episode of Life on Earth that we did on Thursday, you think we've been off for 2 weeks, but since we last spoke to you on Sunday, before last Sunday, we've done 2 shows, so links to those in the show notes as well. If you think, I didn't get enough Robert and Amy Nasir, well, there you go. But in conjunction with that episode and the videos Amy's been watching, we were talking about honor.
Yeah, what does this mean?
Yes.
And,
Honor is a topic that's come up before, and I have promised you we would revisit it because we want, as rational people and people with an interest in philosophy, to reclaim some of these concepts that the wider population seems to have a monopoly on. I don't hear, for example, fans of Ayn Rand, objectivists, speaking as much as they could and perhaps should about honor and courage and confidence, these sort of secondary virtues. And I think we need to really amp it up because I think these concepts are valuable. Ayn Rand, for example, described honor as self-esteem in action. Mm-hmm. And I think that's exactly right. Honor is...
Yeah, which is a very different... Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so dictionary definitions. Honor, high respect, great esteem, adherence to what is right. Now that will also include in some of these definitions adherence to a conventional standard of conduct. And that's one of the reasons why I think some people are a little wary about concepts like honor. And we watch, for example, films where people do things in the name of honor that we think, well, but that's the wrong thing to do. They did that just because they were adhering to, quote unquote, conventional standards of conduct. But honor, like reverence, is a concept that those of us who believe in morality, who believe in standards, who believe in an elevated view of life, we should own these concepts. We should reclaim them. So when Amy says she's watching Japanese travel videos and this idea of honor comes up a lot in their conduct, I thought, well, that's great. That's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Even though, again, some people will take it as an intrinsic or out of context absolute.
Or dogmatic or... or you're socially shamed if you don't do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But I think we can do better than that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, though, that while watching these videos, you see... So look up... actually, you can... Honestly, I'm so addicted to these videos. If you look up Japanese pancakes, you will see some just amazing food preparation work, and the kind of things that these servers do, these cooks do, these restaurateurs do, chefs or however, it is just so mesmerizing and just so beautiful, and they really bring a lot of beauty to just everyday tasks of doing business. And it's really, really lovely. And I just thought about that. And I thought about honor, and I thought about putting beauty in the details of your work, and to notice that about yourself, and to notice that about other people, and to praise that of other people. There was this one guy, he made the pancake, and it was just so perfectly, it was stacked up like, 2.5 inches tall. And on top of that, he was just so perfect about getting the little crumbs and crusts off and away and making it look just right. And then he made this tea, and I believe that the English way of making tea, and I guess in Japan too, is they have the cup in their one hand, their pot in the other, and then they actually pour the tea from probably like 1.5 feet above, which is really interesting because it's steaming and boiling hot, and they don't miss a drop, and it's not splashing on them, and they're not screaming in pain because
Styling.
they just do it, and it looks so beautiful and so elegant, and like a choreography, like a dance.
It must be another reason why the British are very critical of Americans who drink tea with anything less than fully boiling water
Yes.
to brew and steep it.
That's very true.
Yes, well, I imagine it cools off a bit if it's streaming down 1.5 feet.
So I thought about honor and detail
Yes.
and bringing beauty to your everyday tasks, and how I see that a lot in the Japanese videos that I'm watching. It's really lovely. Jim says he was stationed in Japan for a couple of years in the late 70s. Things have changed then, but I'll give you the best advice I can offer when you ask. Oh, I have to ask? By the way, those 2 years were 2 of the happiest years of my life. I loved my work there, but I also loved Japan.
I'm guessing you won't even have to ask.
Aw.
But you will anyway. Also, Jose, of course, says, since we're talking about honor, you killed my father, prepare to die. So, that, of course, had to come up. References to Princess Bride are always welcome.
Yes.
Yes. Now, was that last night? Night before? Maybe it was last night. We just attended the Sidney Poitiers tribute at the Redford Theater in Detroit, Michigan. Redford Theater, beautiful old theater. The kind of a theater that these things get torn down and it breaks your heart. Well, this one didn't get torn down. It just fell into disrepair. And decades ago now, when we first started going there, they had just started putting it back together. And now it's beautiful again. And you look at it and you think, this is the 1920s or 1930s all over again. And we got to see To Sir with Love, which is a great film to see in a theater. And this idea of honor, of carrying yourself a certain way, of having certain personal standards, of not buckling to the pressures around you. Just about any role that Sidney Poitier would take on is beautifully portrayed in his films. And so we had a real pleasure seeing that last night. And it's funny, I haven't seen any of these movies since, I was a kid back in the 70s, I'm sure. And so if you have any recommendations, what would be the next film to see after To Sir with Love? We could go light with, well, it wasn't really light, though, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Or you could go intense with In the Heat of the Night. I remember some of these films vaguely, but I'm going to see them again.
Yeah, I remember In the Heat of the Night. I thought that was good. Very, crime show kind of thing, which I like.
Yeah, well, Miss Crime over here, I'm sure. So let us know if you have any recommendations for the next Sidney Poitier films that we see.
And back to honor. Hey there, Caden. Caden is on Facebook, and he makes a distinction between honor and saving face.
Yes.
So saving face versus chivalry. And he says he likes honor. So
yes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yes.
And Mary Aline says about making the tea, where is OSHA when you need them? Ha 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 ha. And she says, it doesn't sound like they make efficient use of their hands. I guess why use 2 hands for tasks when one is
That's
sufficient?
Right. Put the freaking cup down.
Well, it's just that the counter is actually a little bit tall. So you'd have to really reach way up. I guess ergonomically it is actually
well, I think
in terms of I
think there's a lot more to it than practical considerations. It's just a beautiful thing to see somebody hold a cup and pour a pot. And it can't possibly be practical. At some point you are going to have spills, I'm sure. Like I have restaurant hands. I'm used to boiling water on my hands because I worked in restaurants for years before my IT career. But not everybody is good with that. So anyway, the point is, we do a lot of beautiful things that aren't necessarily the most practical thing, but they're styling.
Yeah, ask yourself what you did today that might be beautiful, that might be elegant or kind of like a dance when you're doing it. I think I kind of dance around when I make oats in the morning. I have a certain a repetitive motion that I go through that is just, I don't know, I think I do it pretty nice. I might actually be able to do it a little bit more elegantly and add that to that experience.
And the way that you make oats does honor to your house. folks who don't know, Amy makes her oats in a little copper pot. Now,
Yes,
we've talked about
cute
copper pot
copper.
objectivism before.
It's adorable.
So Amy couldn't resist when she saw a little tiny copper pot with a copper pot lid.
Yeah.
And that's where she makes her morning oats now, is in this little copper pot. But it's not just oats.
They're steel cut oats.
Well, it's not just steel cut oats. You put stuff in there.
Yeah, I put a little splash of milk, a little dash of honey, maybe some, dried cherries or something like that.
She talks about this like, oh, yeah. Well, when I make oatmeal, and I'll use steel cut oats, but it's just oatmeal. It's just oats in a bowl. And Amy adds dried fruits and honey and stuff.
And just a little bit of cinnamon maybe, or a little bit of nutmeg.
So anyway, your little copper pot does honor to the house. So says I. And I love stories like that, to serve with love. And there's so many good stories that where honor is defended. And again, not in this intrinsicist way of self-sacrifice, but just in the sense of, as Ayn Rand says, self-esteem made visible in action.
There's a lot of that in To Sir with Love.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. It's
it's
kind of groovy, but it's also very good.
We mentioned the Man of La Mancha earlier, Don Quixote, and the loosely related story Cyrano de Bergerac. These are men of honor. And, just like Jose mentions, the scene from The Princess Bride and, Inigo Montoya, you do have this idea of honor a little bit out of context. But in The Princess Bride, it makes perfect sense. There's nothing self-sacrificial about that quest. And similarly, Cyrano de Bergerac, if I could have tweaked the plot, but then it wouldn't have been the same story. So honor is presented in exactly that way. It's not about self-sacrifice. It's about upholding your own highest values. And I love that. And even in The Fountainhead. In fact, I was about to say I earmarked, which implies dog-eared, which implies folding the pages, which I would never do. But with a Post-it note, I marked one of my favorite lines in The Fountainhead. And it's during the Stoddard Temple trial, the first of the two big trials in the book. And it's not from, Howard Rourke doesn't speak, other than to say the defense rests. It's from Dominique Franken. And she's brought on as a star witness. They have no idea how to handle her. They don't know if she's going to...
I love her.
What she's going to say. And the prosecuting attorney brings her on because she's written on architecture in the newspapers before. Says, well, your father is Guy Franquin, or Guy Franken. Your father is Guy Franquin, the eminent architect. And she answers, yes, my father was asked to come here to testify. He refused. He said he did not care for a building such as the Stoddard Temple, but he did not think we were behaving like gentlemen. One of my favorite lines, and something I have to remind myself of and remind other people of every now and then is, are we behaving like gentlemen? Being involved in philosophy and politics, we get into a lot of arguments with the left and the right. And anybody who saw the Pearls Before Swine comic that I posted on Facebook yesterday will know exactly what I'm talking about. This idea of, for example, I totally owned my opposition. And, or in the Pearls Before Swine comics, I totally put up these tweets that, raised hell on Twitter and got everybody all riled up. And the next line in the comic, I guess it's Goat who asks Rat, what did that do? He says, what do you mean? It got everybody all riled up. He says, yeah, but to what end? And, the final panel is Rat saying something like, why are you messing with my entire view of existence?
Right.
And I think that's something the honorable man does, is he knows to what end his actions are. So it's why we can look, we joke about Inigo Montoya because Princess Bride is hilarious, but this is a character who knows what his ends are. In any given moment, he knows why he's doing what he's doing. And you saw that in To Sir with Love. You saw him teaching the children. These are teenagers, they're not children. He makes the point to them, you guys are practically adults. I'm not going to try to teach you all this grade school stuff. We've got 3 weeks before the end of the semester. I'm going to teach you to be adults. And he does that, and he does it as much as by talking to them. He does it by acting like an adult, by acting with honor, by showing them what that looks like. Love that film.
It's so good. And we also have some recommendations. Brian
Yes.
says A Patch of Blue was a good movie.
A Patch of Blue.
And Jim says the man exuded dignity, self-value, and self-esteem. I haven't seen all of Poitiers' films, but my favorite so far is In the Heat of the Night. He likes To Sir with Love, Patch of Blue. And he wants to see The Defiant Ones, Edge of the City, and The Slender Thread.
See, there's some there I haven't even heard of, so thank you for that.
Great.
I guess
Thank you.
we need to catch up. Once we get done watching all of the Murdoch mysteries, and that sounds silly because there's 14 seasons, but we're actually almost done.
We're almost done with 14 seasons.
And then we will do the Sydney Poitiers Film Festival and catch up on a few of these films.
Yes.
And that will be good.
Oui, très bien. Got me speaking French over here, talking about Michelin.
Yes. So I absolutely want us, we, and again, not just the objectivists, but anybody with a serious interest in philosophy and morality. And I can hear half of you out there are saying, if you have a serious interest in philosophy and morality, you are an objectivist. Which, fair enough, I would agree with that. But anybody with an interest, we need to take these concepts like honor and courage and confidence, and even concepts like tradition, and we need to own these. And we say, well, what do you mean tradition? Well, there are traditions out there. What did I say earlier this week? Well, it was on Facebook. You don't know. But if you're on Facebook with me, you know norms. Norms. Mm-hmm. Norms are a starting point. We teach norms. This came up in the context of dating. You know, should a woman make the first move was the topic of a TDO, the daily objective. These kinds of norms are a starting point so that we're not approaching everything with a blank slate or a blank canvas, a white sheet of paper, and no idea where to go from there. Norms are a starting point, and traditions can be like that. So we take traditions and we learn them, and then we question them, and then we do better than that. But you got to start somewhere. You start with the facts of reality, and many of those are to be found in the norms. And honor is one of those concepts where we need to take that concept, get rid of the whole idea of social norms and say, okay, but honor is a thing. We need to be our own best selves. We need to project self-esteem in action.
Yeah, well, before you get into that, I was just going to say that Ayn Rand really turned the idea of honor on its head because if you go to Wikipedia, it's all about social teaching and they talk about personal ethos, but still, the idea of morality being personal morality always leads to subjectivism. But Ayn Rand, in her objectivism, really solidified what a reality-based morality should look like, and in doing so, saying that honor is self-esteem expressed in action. Is self-esteem, not esteem of or respect of others or deference to others or basically obeying what society wants of you. It's entirely at the root of it is it's entirely your own judgment as an individual person, doing things that are good for your life, selfish for you, and based on your own nature and the nature of reality. It's great.
That's absolutely right. But I would probably be even more accepting of the Wikipedia discussion. And the reason is because some concepts are social concepts. Not in the sense of being second-handed and you get your standards by looking at what society is or does. But for example, the concept of individual rights. Whole different topic. But the point is the concept of individual rights is a social concept. The concept doesn't exist outside the context of a society.
Right.
So honor has that attribute. It's not just living up to your own standards on a deserted island, although that matters. So I'm just going to read real quick from Wikipedia because I just brought it up since you mentioned it. Honor is the idea of a bond between an individual and a society as a quality of a person that is both social teaching and of personal ethos, that manifests itself as a code of conduct and has various elements such as valor, chivalry, honesty, and compassion. Well, you're right. They kind of put the poison there right at the beginning, didn't they, by saying it's about social teaching. But again, social norms can be a starting point. It's not totally worthless to say, here is, as Aristotle did, here's what the great people do. But I would take it a step further then and say, okay, well, given that that's what the great people do, what's great about it, what's valid about it, what's not.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, as somebody who values the virtue of independence, think about it for yourself and ask yourself why you like this particular social norm. And, why I particularly like the idea of being a lady, for instance. Not a lady, but more like a lady.
Yes. It's why I use that concept gentleman. It's why I love the Dominique quote.
Right.
Is because when I try to figure out, well, in this context, this situation, whatever it is I'm doing, I got to be a man. One step better than that is I got to be a gentleman, because that subsumes being a man and all of the standards that I regard as being part of being a gentleman. Mm-hmm. And concepts like that are valuable. That's why a concept like honor is valuable. They talk about valor, chivalry, honesty, and compassion. Compassion can be, another tricky one that can be used as a way to try to extract self-sacrifice from people. Or it can simply mean that you are aware of what's going on around you, including the state of mind of somebody that you care about. So, can be both, can be good. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to touch on that concept of honor because, again, these are ones that we've been developing over time. We're going to keep working on. And it came up in the context of, hey, let's go to Japan.
Yes.
And it's something we're going to have to be aware of. So my homework for the week is I'm still working on goal setting. I'm still putting 2022 together. I'm still defining exactly what's going to happen.
It's a process.
With an eye to hierarchy of value. Mm-hmm. So if you saw our episode on values, we discussed hierarchy of values, defining your values. We talked about Andrew Bernstein's How to Be an Impassioned Valuer, which includes a value-setting workshop. Working on that. I want to get it done before the end of the month. In fact, I want to present it here on 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir before the end of the month, both my specific workshop results and also a review of what we've talked about before as far as setting your own hierarchy of values. And I with that in mind, I was putting my Post-it note for the week together. And the obvious one, we'll hold that up for the camera. I need to get a way to zoom in from the camera there. I bet I could. Mm-hmm. But you'll see it's simply Ayn Rand's definition. Honor is well, it's not a definition. It's her, what's the word? Good word for definition when it's not explicitly an epistemological definition.
It's an expression or a description?
I don't think the corrector is online right now, so I'll say it anyway. Ayn Rand's definition, honor is self-esteem made visible in action. So that was my Post-it note for the week, and then I realized honor requires adult behavior. And then if you look, you'd have to really zoom in. At the bottom of my Post-it note, a little kind of footnote to myself, it says no cake. It's a funny thing. And it's a meme that's gone around or a discussion that's gone around in real life meet space and also on the internet. One of the crazy things that happens is you're a kid, you're born, and you have a childhood. You go to grade school, and you have parents and teachers telling you what you can do and what you can't do. One of the things you can't do is you can't have chocolate cake for breakfast, and then for lunch, and then for dinner. In fact, most of the time you can't have it as a meal, and it's usually just a dessert for some of us, a couple times a year. And you can't have candy for every meal. You can't even have as much candy as you want. Mm-hmm. On and on, you get the idea. But the weird thing is you turn 16 and you get a job, or you turn 18 and you become an adult, and then you go out on your own and you're independent, and nobody is there to tell you, well, you can't have cake for breakfast and lunch and dinner, and nobody's there to stop you from doing what you might have done when you were 7 years old and somebody put a credit card or $100 in your pocket, and nobody's stopping you from going to the grocery store and doing all of your grocery shopping in the pastry aisle. So we learn, of course. We not only do we not to have sugar coma and a big headache and weeks later an enormous belly. We figure that out, but eventually we actually automatize and integrate all of that, and we don't even want to have cake for breakfast and lunch and dinner. And so I was reminded that there are elements of honor in that. Honor requires adult behavior, which means we can't have cake for every meal. At most every other meal.
It's got milk and eggs and wheat.
And this is coming up for me in the context of our discussions about hierarchy of values and hierarchy of needs. And I don't mean Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean Robert Nasir's hierarchy of needs. That hierarchy that comes from your daily actions, feet on the ground, 0 feet, ground level, which is where I feel like I've been living since Christmas. And then the 10,000 foot level of your actual habits, and your 20,000 foot level of your actual routines, and your 30,000 foot level of your actual goals, and your 40,000 foot level of your purpose, and your 50,000 foot level of your view of yourself and your mission statement for your life. We've talked about that before, but I'll tell you, ever since Christmas, I've been having a real challenge getting back to that multi-level view and managing my life from 50,000 feet. Still working on it, but I realized we talked about resets before. Now, I don't mean the Great Reset, that socio-political idea that is kind of a nightmare right now. And I don't even mean the kind of reset that a lot of people are having in professions and COVID and all that. No, the reset that I've talked about before is in our talk Weekends and Holidays. We talked about resetting your standards. What happens when you are, say, in a romantic relationship? Or you're a parent with your kids, and you buy them a birthday present. And then next year you buy them another birthday present, and you maybe have the idea, well, last year's present was good, I want to make this one even better. And then you buy them a present 2 years from now on their birthday, and you feel kind of a pressure to make it even better. Or you throw a birthday party, or just a regular party with friends, and you got to make the next one a little better, and you kind of got to make the next one a little bit better. And as we talked about, every now and then you've got to reset. Every now and then you've got to say to your children or your romantic partner or your parents or whoever it is, this year, say for Christmas, we're going to do all of our shopping at the dollar store. And we'll buy each other 1 or 2 presents that aren't from the dollar store. We'll get something but nothing extravagant. We're just going to have a lot of little things and have a silly holiday and reset. We're going to reset our standards and not feel that every party, every going out to dinner, every Christmas, every birthday has to be bigger and better. It's great to do that, and you can do that, and you should do that, and you should make things better every year, but every now and then you've got to reset. Every now and then you've got to say, whoa, this is getting out of hand. Let's make this realistic. So my last Post-it note for the week is a cautionary tale. And it's, again, what I've learned since Christmas, which is reset before a reset is forced on you. I think we've all been through this. One of the reasons you go through this reset is not just because each birthday, each Christmas, each holiday, each romantic night out got bigger and bigger and bigger. But at some point, if you don't reset, if you don't say, whoa, things are getting out of hand here, that reset will be forced on you because 3 words, reality always wins.
Yes, it does.
So,
yeah, we've got a comment here.
Yes.
Jim says, remember, honor thy father and mother? Oh, yes, I do.
Honor thy father. There's another one where you have a cultural norm that is, at best, a starting point and could be very valuable if you treat it at best as a starting point. I absolutely believe in honoring your mother and father.
Yes.
To a point.
Right. He says, if somebody argues that for that commandment in a debate with me, I will rebut him with, quote, what if one's father and or mother are criminals?
Yes.
Does that mean you have to live your life like they live theirs?
Yes.
That would be honoring them?
That's a great point. I didn't even think of it that way. I thought they were going to say something like, doesn't that mean you should still sacrifice for them and give them all your money and help them every time they get put in jail? And Jim makes the point, really honoring them would be to say, well, I should be like them. I should show them I can be a criminal or a ne'er-do-well too.
Right.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah, those 10 Commandments, I was raised Catholic myself, and, come on, honestly.
Come on, honestly is a good answer to...
honestly. All right.
That's a good answer to the Catholic Church. Come on, honestly. I like that. No, seriously.
I know.
That's about all they deserve.
I know.
I know there's apologetics and all that stuff out there to deal with.
Sometimes it's good to have a rebuttal that's very intellectual, but sometimes it's important to have an exclamation.
Yeah, sometimes you've just got to say, come on, honestly.
Or the other one I like is, cut it out.
Cut it out. Enough already.
Enough already. And Brian says, but what about when we need to honor the child within us?
We do. We absolutely need to honor the child within us. But what that really means, you don't want to honor I don't want to honor the child within me and suck on my thumb. What it really means is you had values when you were 5 years old.
You are still the same person.
That in some ways, we let go of that stuff. We let it go. We kind of had to. To learn certain things, you had to set some of that stuff aside. And then you get in a point in your life where you can afford to bring it back. You can afford to bring back the wonder and the silliness.
Yeah.
You've got an established life. You've got a job. You've got a career. You've got a home. And now it's time to say, wow, what did I have to set aside that gave me such joy and that can be translated into adult terms? Some of it doesn't even need to be translated. Some of that silliness should just come back. Fortunately, we have the arts and books and film and music for that can bring a lot of that stuff back. But you're right, Brian, some people never or rarely do. And I don't think we have too many of those types listening to this show. Those types would say, I don't know, Robert and Amy are kind of silly. I suspect. I'm just guessing.
I suspect, I guess, yeah.
Or maybe they watch us and say, they bring out something in me. I don't know what it is, but I think they're bringing something out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's why I like the films where people reclaim their own best selves from their childhood.
Yes, like Drop Dead Fred.
Like Drop Dead Fred, yeah. But any of these films of a personal redemption, we always bring up A Christmas Carol, for example. Anything that brings out your own best self. And sometimes, there are elements of that from when you were 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old. Parts of yourself that you had to put away and hopefully not kill, but just set aside to get where you needed to go. So thank you for that, Brian. I appreciate you bringing it up. And that's it. We've done homework. We've done Post-it notes. Again, we took a week off. I intended to just postpone it, but we ended up taking the week off. We did have 2 episodes. I held up 3 fingers. What the heck? People are listening to the podcast and they don't know. But those of you watching on video, 2 fingers. We did have 2 episodes of Life on Earth on the Ayn Rand Center UK channel. So if you missed us, we were there. You had that opportunity. But thank you for tolerating a week off, especially to those of you who are paying for this show. We have patrons.
Thank you, guys.
And if you're not a patron, you could be a patron. You could go to robertnasir.com and click on that link to Patreon, or for one-time contributions, PayPal. But anyway, the funny thing is, well, I don't know if it's funny, but quirky thing is, when we ended up taking a week off, because Amy was I wasn't going to say who was under the weather, because one of us was under the weather, I felt kind of bad, like I was shirking, and I know that's not the way Patreon and PayPal work. They're not paying us for specific episodes and you're getting, $5 an hour to do this episode or whatever it is. But I don't know, I still feel like I kind of let our patrons down. So glad you're here. Glad you stuck around. Glad we didn't lose you because we skipped 1 episode. Oh my God, I feel so bad. I don't know. We'll do a whole show. We have not done a show on guilt.
Oh, we haven't yet?
We don't usually do shows on negative topics, but I'm not sure what the opposite of guilt would be. I mean, we've done a show on pride.
Yeah.
And this show is about honor, so there's self-esteem in action, which is acting with pride. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll do a whole show on guilt.
Ooh.
Now, we don't do negative stuff, but ways of managing guilt, dealing with guilt, turning guilt into pride, or at least learning to, I don't know, maybe. Either way, felt a little, I don't know if guilty is the right word, but a little guilty for taking a week off. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to those of us who are patrons of the show. As always, we will post the show notes to this episode, including all of that fun and interesting and quirky information about Michelin, both the tires and the restaurants. Oh. Same guy, André Michelin. It is his birthday, and we will post all the information about the other quirky things we talked about. Yes, ma'am.
And happy night of January 16th.
Oh my gosh,
how Ayn Rand friends
how did
out
we
there.
miss that? It is. It's the night of January 16th. So if you are walking around outside, be careful no bodies fall on you. Because that's a thing that happens on the night of January 16th is suicides of great industrialists that...
No.
Actually, his body didn't fall out the window. It turned out the real body was... well, anyway.
Oh, we won't say anything more.
Say no more. If you haven't yet read the play or seen the play, we've actually seen it a couple times.
Yes.
Night of January 16th by Ayn Rand. This would be the night to read it. And if you don't have a copy of the book, it's great because it's 2022. You just go to Amazon, you get the Kindle version, or you go to archive.org and use one of the lending libraries to borrow it. Read Night of January. It's a quick read. It's a great play. Unless you get the grade school version of it.
Don't look at that.
We did. We attended.
The Ayn Rand.
We attended one where they used the grade school script that Ayn Rand warns about in one of the editions of Night of January 16th. It was so silly, the stuff they add in and leave out. And anyway, Night of January 16th. You're right. This is it. Great play. Watch that thing. And thank you for joining us. Show notes will be online. You know where to go if you want to support the show. We talked about that. 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir Facebook group for suggestions for future episodes. And as always, we wish you success. We wish you flourishing. We wish you the opportunity to act with honor, to be your own best self, to live up to your own standards. Because those are the only standards you need to live up to. Because you are marvelous. And as always,